On Saturday night, I recorded the message, "The Shot Seen Round the World," and I ended it with this rather abrupt warning. And when you come face to face with the mob, do not respond to provocation from them. And whatever happens in the chaos of a riot, do not let yourself be separated from the safety of your team. Because if the mob hates you, it only takes a couple of criminals in the mob to kill you. And there are people in these mobs who literally do believe that they can get away with murder and will get away with murder. And just 1 hour after I recorded this, a man described as a patriotic Christian, Aaron Danielson, found himself separated from a patriotic caravan which had earlier driven through Portland, and that caravan had been impeded occasionally by belligerent rioters. They were all over the downtown area. And after dark, Danielson and a friend were spotted alone and were identified as being outsiders. They were not part of the mob, clearly not part of the leftist mob. They were wearing their Patriot Prayer hats. They were then allegedly targeted by Antifa agitators and quickly fired on in the middle of the downtown area, on a street, out in the middle of a street, at point blank range. There were 2 shots fired. One missed, and one hit Aaron right in the chest, and he fell dead right in the street. Then the murderer ran off, disappeared into the dark, and is still at large at the time of this recording. And prior to murdering Danielson, the killers who found them isolated there in the downtown area reportedly called out something loudly, not entirely understandable on the recording. It sounded like, "We got another right here." And Aaron's friend, the eyewitness to the murder, who was right there, quotes them as saying, "We got 2 of them right here, pull it out," meaning pull out the concealed murder weapon. And so people are asking right now, who are analyzing this, were caravan stragglers being hunted? And Aaron's companion, who survived, confirmed it and said, yes, they hunted us down. And across town, there was a great celebration. The Antifa mob cheered the news of Danielson's murder.
I am not sad that a fucking fascist died tonight.
Now, what America is seeing is the weaponizing of hatred all over the country, not just in Portland, but all over where these organizers are putting together their riots and their rioting. They're very well funded. They're very well organized. There is incitement of violence and insurrection by very wealthy organizers who are leftists and who are Marxists, trained Marxists. Ready-made slogans were made to be shouted emotionally and to guilt non-thinking Americans into joining the angry demolition of culture to become part of the mob.
Y'all are not angry, you're not paying attention.
Honestly, I think the looting is completely justified. No justice, no peace.
Now, people who don't willingly volunteer to join the mob are stopped on the roads, they're accosted on streets or in restaurants. They are robbed, their small businesses are looted and burned down, and they are now violently treated, chased down the streets, kicked in the head if they happen to fall to the ground. And now the mob cheers if isolated citizens are ambushed and gunned down. Now, no mob of any size has any capacity for justice and moral reasoning. The rank and file who are part of the mob are led into madness by emotion and irrationality. And today, they are so deluded, the ones who've joined up in this mob in the year 2020, all over the country. Same kinds of slogans, the same kinds of activities, same kind of hatred, same sorts of emotions. Today, they are so deluded, they think they have actually now legitimate civic power. And primarily because weak and corrupt politicians have been giving in to them, giving in to their demands continually, and they take orders from the mob. And now that the mob thinks they're in charge, what does the mob want? Do they just want a rule of peaceful community? Do they want peace and law and order and security? No, of course not. They want anarchy and conditions of civil war, and in many cities they've got that now. They've achieved it in Portland. Mayor Wheeler and District Attorney Schmidt just received a letter recently, I think just this week, from Daryl Turner, the president of the Portland Police Association. And the contents of the letter, I think they were meant to be private, but have been somehow leaked, and the public has them now. And it's a chilling letter. I mean, a very honest letter and an appeal. I don't know how in the world the mayor and the DA can respond to this other than simply by resigning. But Turner makes clear very clearly what their failure is. He points out to them, knowing from the police reports and police activity, he says, the people intent on rioting, violence, arson, and assault are not peaceful protesters. They are criminals who come prepared with helmets, masks, shields, fake press passes, rocks, mortars, fireworks, and other handheld weapons. And then he provides photographs for them of the kinds of weapons that they bring, including, yes, handguns, loaded handguns. They were not peacefully using words or signs of protest to enact social reform, racial equity, or police reform. They were wielding weapons meant to destroy property and to harm people. Goes on to say, although the police bureau has made 21 arrests just in the last 2 days, I have no doubt that those arrested will get away with their crimes without any consequence or accountability from the district attorney's office. And then he says, and we knew this, weeks ago, and I reported on this in another essay, that D.A. Schmidt went public in a press conference and said he would not be prosecuting these rioters for true crimes that are on the books. And then he listed them. As police commissioner, and Turner says this to them, as police commissioner and district attorney, your primary jobs are public safety, not politics. You are failing, is what he says. Then he goes on to say this, and this is really serious. Over the last 2 nights, we have seen premeditated attempts by rioters to burn down the East Precinct, which is connected to residential housing. And so, do you see, apartments occupied by general members of the public. And so they are in danger. This arson puts their lives at danger. Do they care, or are they actually trying to commit murder? And we have to say that acts like these are acts of war against the lives of helpless civilians who are deciding that they can no longer be patient, they don't know what they can do, they can no longer be really helpful to the governing authorities because the governing authorities are failing them. They can't be helpful to the police because the police are not even allowed to go out and serve and protect. These now are embattled citizens. There's a war going on against them. There's a continual battle going on against them. And that's how we should describe them. They are embattled citizens. And they are realizing that they need to fight back, but they're not really sure how they can, what they can. They know that it's a civil war developing and are wondering, and I'm wondering this too, will the continued fighting, the fighting next week, will it be frenzied and chaotic? A little bit like it was in the country of Colombia, where they had a civil war, which in itself was actually started by race conflict down there. And then a crashing of the economy. It was frenzied and chaotic and very deadly. So is that what we'll be seeing? Or will there be more systematic civil war waged lawfully and in an organized way to secure a lawful peace? Well, Vice President Biden has offered his perspective and his solution. He said, just this week, vote for me to calm the rioters down. That's how he thinks things can be settled. Vote for me and the rioters will just sort of become peaceful people. And his threat yesterday went like this. Do you think there will be less violence if President Trump is reelected? And it's a threat. He's warning us that the Civil War will become more violent if voters don't elect him and Mrs. Harris. I think it's pretty easy to see what we need to do, but analysis is cheap. Talk is cheap. It's easy for me to throw out these 4 solutions. The hard steps of making solutions happen will fall on the shoulders of citizens like you who are watching this. I mean, we can't just continue to talk about it. We have to be doing things. And yes, I'm working on all four of these things, but it will really take a lot of us to do it. And I must say, without accomplishing point number one, the others will likely never happen. So let's look at these. Number one, the voting process. If it's honest and without fraud, this can bring about peace by applying justice to the unjust insurrectionists. We can get people into office who will let the police do what they do, let the judges do what they're supposed to do, and will do what's right and fulfill their duties to serve and protect the persons and the private property that they've been elected to preserve and protect. And so what you have to do and I have to do, we have to arrange for our state, and this is the only way that we can do it at this point, to arrange to do all voting in person by paper ballot at local precincts, like the European nations do in every single election. In every precinct, all votes, and they've seen this, and we know if we just do the math on paper, in every single precinct, all votes can be tallied and registered within 4 short hours after the closing of the polls on election day. It doesn't take forever. It's not really hard. You get people, you get Democrats, you get Republicans to sit at a table and you count all the ballots, you count all the votes, you make a tally, and then you simply put the results up on the wall. And then you report those. And those results can be checked. They're just permanently stuck up there on the wall. And you can check. The media can come in and take pictures of these, and they can tally it all up and see, who won, who lost, what are the numbers, what exactly are the numbers. And so then, once you have that honest system in place, you can use the ballot to vote out of office, to impeach, the weak and the feckless politicians who've surrendered the streets to the leftist mob, including police chiefs and prosecutors, judges, and welfare-dependent bureaucrats who are complicit in appeasing these criminal combatants. All over the country, the leftists have been doing this. Mostly Democratic leftists, but we do have some Republican leftists who've done this too. And here's the second one now. Once you've impeached people like the mayor of Portland and the DA of Portland, you need to remind the rioters, and we have to be speaking directly to them in every possible way that we can, that they are not the lawful authority, and that they will be punished for violating laws against rioting, theft, and conspiracy to commit murder, because we're voting in people who will actually fulfill their duties to bring the punishments about, to arrest them, to try them, and then to apply the correct punishment that's on the books. We have to tell them that they have no authority to appoint themselves judge, jury, and executioner in the name of social justice. This is what they've been doing. And I can see why they believe that they have the complete freedom and the authority to do this, because every demand that they've been making has simply just been granted to them by the mayors and the district attorneys and the governors of many of these states. And so we tell these rioters, no, you're not in charge. You cannot pass death sentences on people that you simply don't like, or people who have unpopular colors of skin, or people who have these patriot prayer hats. You can't just go around labeling them as Nazis, which is what happened to Aaron the other night. They're not Nazis, these people that you disagree with. These citizens, average citizens in the neighborhoods of America, they are not National Socialists, but the mob organizers truly are. And I hope you understand that and know that. America is currently not at war with National Socialism, as we were during World War II. Americans cannot just randomly murder other Americans and call it just war or lawful execution. Killing of Aaron Danielson was not a lawful execution. It was more like an assassination, but just plainly, if we look at the law books, what it was first-degree murder. Number 3, here's the next solution. We need to tell the police, you need to tell the police, and the prosecutors and the local judges that you will expect them to enforce the real laws on the books. Now we're voting them in because they are promising to do this, but we need to tell them, if you fail, we have to get rid of you. even through impeachment, if we can follow that and make that happen, because you have a duty to do. You need to enforce the real laws on the books, to indict those who are funding the riots too, and organizing the riots and leading the riots, as well as those young, hateful participants themselves who are just going along for the ride. And then we need to support all those authorities in all that they are doing to do right. Now, point number four, is the most difficult of all. And to give it proper time, I'm going to try to outline that one briefly tomorrow. Now, what I'm attempting to do in these videos, all these videos, is carefully to provide legal and historical foundations for not only thinking through immediate cultural solutions, but putting them peacefully into place. That's what I'm trying to do in the whole collection of videos that I'm making. And no one video can cover all the solutions because they're short and they're very, very basic. And those that you find most helpful, I'd like to ask you please to share them with others who are wrestling with these pressing issues. Try to, don't just watch it and finish it, but go ahead and share it and subscribe. And if you want to hit more, and if you want to see the one tomorrow about solution number 4, hit the notification button. And please do communicate with me. Send me your responses, your questions, and your recommendations at questions@jeffreybotkin.com. And thank you for working through these with me and watching these.